Dynasty football is ever growing. It's a form of fantasy football that a lot of you know, obviously, if you're on the channel, but a lot of people are still relatively new. And what we wanted to do today is to bring you do's and don'ts in Dynasty football. Just from our experience, our years of playing it, we're going to give you 4 do's and 4 don'ts. And hopefully this will help you feel more confident in your Dynasty leagues. Or maybe there's a little tip in here that you appreciate and that you can use moving forward. Drop a like if you want to support the show. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And comment down below, what's a do and a don't for you? Something that you live by in Dynasty football. All right, let's start with the do's. Things that we do want you to do or that we would do ourselves. My first do, and then we'll go to you, and you'll do your do.
I do my do, as you do your do.
We need to get Mountain Dew to sponsor this thing or something.
Oh my gosh, shout out to Mountain Dew.
Hey, Code Red was different back in the day. Okay, my first do. Keep your first round picks. Keep your first round picks. Hear me out. I am not saying that you can't go all in and compete. What I am saying is we often forget how rare it is to win a championship. Okay? Think about this for a second. Let's just do quick maths. Percentage of chance that you have to win a 12-man league. Well, if all 12 teams are competing, you have about an 8% chance. How about 8 teams? Let's be honest, not everyone's competing in Dynasty. Well, you have a 12.5% chance. How about 6 teams? Most Dynasty leagues probably at minimum have at least 6 teams competing. If that's the case, you have a 16.6% chance to win. Now, let's say best case scenario, only 4 teams, which is completely unrealistic for most leagues. Let's say only 4 teams are actually competing that year. You would only have a 25% chance to win. Don't forget that it is still very rare to win a championship, no matter how good your team is. And secondly, we can do a bunch of research, but none of us have a crystal ball. I remember last year, Badake, we did a startup in our follower leagues, the India Dynasty follower league. I went all in. I just wanted to try it. I wanted to have some fun. It's not typically what I do. And I felt so good about the roster I had put together. Week 1, here was my starting roster. And remember, come back with me an entire year because this roster looked pretty damn good this time last year. I had Matthew Stafford. I had Chase Edmonds, Javonte Williams, Allen Robinson, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Pitts, Michael Pittman, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert. On my bench, I had Jimmy G, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, this felt like a team that was seriously ready to compete and go out and fight for a championship. The team completely fell apart. Matthew Stafford was not anywhere near what he was the year before. Justin Herbert was destroying my team on a weekly basis. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Keenan Allen was out. And I had Keenan Allen on my team. Kyle Pitts got an injury. Chase Edmonds ended up being nothing. Miles Sanders and Tony Pollard were great finds, but J.K. Dobbins wasn't there. Javonte Williams tore his ACL. I mean, it just completely fell apart, and I had no future picks to play around with and to build, and that really hurt me. Even if you have a superstar team, let's say your team completely kept it together and you're in the playoffs. Even if you have a superstar team, you can fall short in the playoffs. Injuries happen, one-off bad games where Justin Jefferson only catches 1 ball. You know, it can happen to any of us. So when you give away all your future picks, and this could be for second-round picks as well, when you give away your future picks, you handcuff your team, and eventually you're going to have to pay the price, just like the Los Angeles Rams this year, right? You might win a championship, but eventually, you know, time comes for everyone, and you're going to have to pay the price. Keep infusing your team with youth. You can do a startup and have a win-now team, but you don't need to get rid of your future picks. Keep your future picks. Otherwise, you're handcuffing yourself, and you can only improve and get younger through the trade market. So keep your future picks is something I would suggest.
Yeah, no, 100%. I like it. You gotta don't go too crazy. And like you said, the Rams. That's why Sean McVay was like, you know what, I'm about to dip because we ain't about to be good no more. All right, my first do, I think it's pretty simple. It's pretty straight to the point, but I also want to give people a reminder because they go into so many new leagues that they know nobody. Know your league mates, right? Know their value. Know who they are as you don't have to know their whole life. Have a simple conversation. Right? And that is what people forget to do in Dynasty. People's like, oh, I just joined a league, 12-man league, just send a bunch of trades. You need to know these people's values. It's important to ask questions and to understand where they stand with players, right? So know your league mates' values. Know who they are as people, as a fantasy player. And something super simple that it may sound dumb because I can just picture somebody 30 years old like me. I was like, this is so dumb. these are
very important.
It's very, very important because people miss the first step. It's just having conversation, asking questions. And here's some questions that I kind of like to ask. And even in our follow leagues, when people signed up to our Patreon and we joined the follower league, the first thing we said, the first thing we pinned in the chat was, "Hey, what's your favorite team? Who do you go for? What's your favorite player? Like, where you're from?" It's as simple as that. But I do have some more questions that when you're going into a league and you're trying to understand your fantasy managers and understand their value on players, is once again so simple. How long you been playing fantasy? What's your favorite team? Who's your favorite fantasy player? What team do you like? What team do you support? How do you value this player? When I go to somebody like, oh, hey, so you like the 49ers? So you like CMC? How do you value CMC? Like, how do you value Jimmy G? Some of these players are going to be valued a lot more than others in their eyes compared to you. And that's where things can happen. That's where trades can happen, because a lot of people misunderstand that when you go into a league and when you go into a league where you don't understand, when you don't know anyone, your value gets lost, right? You have so much disagreements. If you just ask the simple questions, you can understand where these guys are, where these league mates are, and know who they are as players and fantasy owners. So once again, this is a super simple tip, super simple do, but it's so important to ask your players questions, know your league mates, and know your league mates' values on certain fantasy players. So that's my first do.
Totally. And just like how they draft. I mean, you'll see that in startup drafts, you'll see that in rookie drafts, what players that they value, and you'll see that in the trades they make. But you're right, you do need to know. I think relationships are so important in Dynasty. And that's why we just don't suggest to join a league where you literally don't know anyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's tough.
like, our face. Like, if you're in our fire leagues, you know us, you know the community, you've been around the community for a while. So like, there's that trust there. And then obviously we have our home leagues and stuff. That's a great way to do it as well. But if you're joining leagues just with random people that you've never met, I mean, it's really difficult to get that gauge on knowing people. And relationships are so important. So you definitely can get to know them. Open up the DMs, get to know people, and relationships are super important for Dynasty. All right, my second do is be fab active in and out of the season.
Come on,
okay, be fab active in and out of the season. Let's look at some additions that were made in both our follower leagues, our home leagues, and in other leagues that we saw through our Discord. We have over 1,000 people there. So if you're going to sit here and comment, these players weren't available on my okay, calm down, because we have a resource of over 1,000 people. We have seen people pick up these players. So let's look at free agent additions through the waiver wire that were preseason. Geno Smith, as crazy as that sounds, Geno Smith was available in a lot of leagues that had like 10 benches.
That's wild.
11 bench spots. He was out there. He was available. A lot of people picked up for 0 fab or 20 fab, whatever the case may be. You had Isaiah Pacheco there. You had Josh Palmer, David Njoku. I picked up David Njoku in our home Dynasty League with offseason fab. Marcus Mariota, Jake Ferguson, Isaiah Likely. Some of those guys might not work out. But if you had Marcus Mariota and you were a win now team for that first 6 weeks, first 10 weeks rather, he was a top 9 fantasy quarterback. So that could have really helped you out. How about in-season ads? In season, these players were added to Dynasty rosters. Brock Purdy, again, someone who probably helped people win Dynasty championships. Jerick McKinnon absolutely helped people win Dynasty championships.
Every single year with Jerick,
right?
It feels like it.
Coming right back up. Deonta Foreman, Hayden Hurst, OBJ. Still, verdict is out on that. How about Zay Jones, Tristan Ebner? Now, again, you might be looking to say, those players weren't available in my league. It's okay, guys. We have resource with thousands of people. The point is, you can find gyms with your fab.
Yeah.
Okay?
Agreed.
In your fab, get this. You know how back in the day, phone plans, they would have rollover plans? Oh, yeah, I got a 500 minutes, and I only used 100 in this month, so now I got 900 minutes next month.
Right.
Fab does not roll over. It's not on a rollover plan. It's okay if you miss. It's okay. And the last thing I'll say is, you can't find a Brock Purdy if you don't take shots on the Sam Ellingers of the world, right? I mean, it's okay to take shots on players. Sometimes you might miss. That's okay. You don't have that money anymore now, right?
Yeah.
It's okay if you miss it. Fab reignites each offseason. And I don't know how you guys do your fab, but this is how we do it. Our offseason, we have $100 fab. That's what you get to use. And then the season starts. In season, you have another $100 fab. So that's how we do it. Off season and in season, you get $100 fab. The point being is just don't let your fab get to the end of that timeline and you still have $100. Do something with it. You know, like take a shot on a player, be active. And it's okay if you miss because sometimes you will hit and it could change your roster for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's so much more. I mean, you brought a good list. There's so many more names out there. Like Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton that had a nice little role. I mean, these guys aren't league winners. Mac Hollins, who had like a little snippets of a couple games.
Sure.
Right? Like there's so many players out there. It's so good to spend your fab and I love it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes
and I will say, like, you don't always have to spend the most money, but just be active.
Yeah,
know what positions are valuable and then decide how much to spend.
Completely agree. All right, my second do, and this is more for I guess it's kind of for everyone, league members and commissioners, be willing to change. We get so many messages, so many DMs. Hey, what will you do if your league doesn't want to change? What will you do if this and that? Like,
yes,
fantasy football is always evolving. Every single year is changing. Those old school guys, which is no disrespect, please don't take this as disrespect. If you're a guy that's been playing fantasy before I was even born, and you're saying I'm only going to do a 1 quarterback league and running backs are going to, have a weird point system, right? Like, honestly, it just doesn't work anymore. That's kind of like saying, you know what? There's no point in getting the iPhone because my flip phone still works.
Yeah,
you got
it works, but it could be more fun.
It could be.
You could have a better time.
Exactly, it could be more fun. And that's the thing. You are hindering your league. You're hindering yourself, honestly, from really just growing and understanding what's new out there in the fantasy world, right? I'm not, and this is specifically, I would say, maybe for 1 quarterback leagues. And I'm not attacking you guys because we just did a 1 quarterback mock draft, draft for the videos. It's just like it's fun. But like it's actually so much fun if you have a 2 quarterback league, or if you have an extra wide receiver spot, or if you have an extra flex spot, right? Like there's so much things that you can kind of do. Yeah. Test out the waters. Be open to change. Don't be that league commissioner that says, "Nah, I'm not doing it." Like we get so many people in our DM saying, "Hey man, I just went to my league commissioner and they said absolutely not." Like, what's your advice? I mean, I want to say just leave, bro.
Or just be open to change. Yeah, be open try and test it out.
It is so tough, and I feel so bad for some of these people. And I think these are a couple steps. Be open to change, test it out, right? And if you're in a 1 quarterback league, and everyone keeps saying, "Let's do superflex, let's do superflex, let's do superflex," and let's say we're in a home league that's like $50 to $100, right? What you can do is have a superflex league that's $10, right? Have a little bit of investment, not anything crazy. $10 is not going to break your bank, but you can get $120 at the end of it. That's still a lot of, at least that's a lot of money for me. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be happy with $120, right? Sure. So that's what I'm saying. Be willing to change. Be open to things. That's what's so exciting about fantasy and about the way it's evolving. You want somebody like the Patrick Mahomes that can get the rushing yards, or Lamar that can get the rushing yards, whatever the case may be. The PPR points for running backs. I mean, there's so much things that you can do to make fantasy football so much better. So if you're a league commissioner out there, be open to change.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. Like, first off, people have 1 quarterback leagues and they like it, and that's okay. And I have nothing against a 1 quarterback league. All I'll say is try it. Maybe try Superflex. Maybe try it. And like Badake said, maybe you don't like it. Here's what I'll say, though. What's the most valuable position in the NFL? Quarterbacks. Maybe we should put more value on them in fantasy football. That's all I'm going to say. But there's other things I thought about. I know some people who talk to us and they say, I can only make 3 trades a year. Or if I trade, I have to put some money into the pot. Like those kind of restrictions are weird. Like, why can't your league change that? Trading is one of the best parts of fantasy. Like, let's open that up. How about leagues that won't do fab? Like, they just, no, we're good. We're going to use a waiver system.
Yeah.
Like, why?
So much,
it's another fun way to play the game. And then other people who just won't get into dynasty football and as a whole, it's like, just try it. Like, why not just try it? So I agree. I think it's okay if you have 1 quarterback league personally. I'm like, that's fine. Like, do what you want to do. but be willing to change, right? Like with settings, formats, it's okay. I mean, we've tried things and we don't like it. I mean, we don't play in tight end premium leagues because we don't like that format.
Yeah, exactly.
But we still have tried it before, and it's intriguing. So I like it. All right. Now we're going to do don'ts. Don't do the following things. All right.
Okay.
My first don't is, and I think you and I might disagree on this one slightly.
Okay.
But I'll just kind of say my piece on it. For me, I am one of those people who's like, do not draft for need in rookie drafts. Okay. Don't draft for need. And there is one exception. I'll say at the very end of this point. But for me, you can always trade for the position you have needs at after the draft. I am a big advocate of taking best player available in your rookie draft. So let's just bring an example. So let's say last year in the 2022 class, you had a big quarterback need, right? You were hoping Malik Willis, Sam Howell, Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, everyone was going to get high draft capital so you could have kind of your pick of the litter, if you will, right? So let's say you drafted Kenny Pickett at the 103, the 102, the 104, and the reason you did that is because you had a quarterback need, but you missed out on players like Chris Olave, Ken Walker, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, etc. I mean, those players right now, add to the list. Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, Christian Watson, right? I mean, for me, I believe if I'm remembering properly, Pickett was around my 109 is where I valued him in last year's draft. And people were like, I need quarterback. What do I do? And I kept telling them, draft best player available, then go trade for need, right? If you were that person who went out and drafted Pickett that early, and again, if you vowed him that way, then you did. But if you did it because of need, that's what I'm trying to say. If you did it because of need, let's look at today. I mean, today, Pickett consensus rankings is behind all those players I just mentioned, right? He's behind all of them. Whereas if you drafted a Chris Olave, a Ken Walker, a Garrett Wilson, Drake London, some of the other guys, you could be in trade conversations today for guys like Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Tua Tagovailoa. So again, I can't stress it enough. It's okay if you have team needs.
Yeah.
Address those in trade market. And, I know you and I have disagreed on this at different times in the past. This is just a don't for me because I think you end up missing out on certain values. The only exception, and which I said at the beginning, there's one exception. The only exception for me is if the players you are drafting between, you're on the clock, I have these three options, okay? They're all in the same tier for me. I all view them as very similar talents. That's when you can maybe go for the needs. Let's say, in this year's class, you have a JSN, you have a Stroud, right? You have a Jahmyr Gibbs on the board. Well, all those players for me are in very similar tiers. So what are you going to do? Like, where is your need? So, I'm probably still leaning quarterback because I like those players better than I liked Kenny Pickett. But anyway, I hope that makes sense. Like, I'm a very big advocate. Draft the best player available. And if you truly think that's the best player available, he's probably going to be the most valuable in 6 months' time, in a year time. And then you can kind of, use the trade market to address your needs.
For sure. Yeah, no, this is definitely something that I did last year, drafting Kenny Pickett ahead of some of these guys. And I mean, honestly, fortunately, I had a lot of times when I did draft Kenny Pickett, I had a guy at the end. So I was had the ability to take, Treylon in the league or Jameson in the league, Christian Watson in the league. So yeah, 100%. I can definitely see the thought process. But if you believe in that player, what I would say is be okay to take him. Be okay to be the outsider.
And that's the difference. Like if you have them in the same tier, fine, right? But if you don't, and like I said, I had Kenny Pickett as my 108, 109, and like in that scenario, I'm drafting those other guys like I mentioned ahead of him. Yeah. So it just depends on how you value the player.
Yeah, agreed. All right, my first don't sell your second round picks for nothing. There's so many people, even in our Discord, in our leagues, that saying, hey, what do you think about this trade? And they'll be setting a second round pick for a player that's kind of irrelevant just because they want that player as right now, or an older player, right? I think there's a lot of people out there that do that. And whether it's 2023, 2024, even 2025, their value's still there just because you don't understand. And honestly, I learned this from Zach, early on when we started doing this. He was like, bro, I keep my second round picks. I was like, okay, well, I'm happy to trade them away. And then I kind of understood that thought process. And I was like, you know what? I'm not trading that away anymore because it does make sense because the value there in second round, it varies in every single league depending on the league that you get, right? But these are some players. I went back to our follower leagues. I think it was Alpha and Bravo. These are some people in the second round. Jahan Dotson, James Cook, Trey McBride, Brian Robinson, Tyler Algier, Rashad White, Damian Pierce, Wanda Robinson, Alec Pierce. These guys aren't home run hits. These guys aren't guys that are league winners, but these are guys that had roles. I mean, Tyler Algier, there was a point where you can get him, you can flip him for an end of the first. Same thing with Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce, I mean, the value that you can get for some of these players. Some people now with the ability and you know who they are and the way that you can flip him, I think is what's intriguing. So you can get a second round pick that may not have the best draft capital, that may not land on the best team, but somehow gets opportunity somehow, some way throughout that season and then flips. I mean, we weren't high on Tyler Algier at all. I mean, I think if I'm correct, I think we were both saying, oh, he's like a third round pick in rookie drafts. There's no point. Cordell Patterson's there. I don't see Cordell Patterson kind of, losing his role. Tyler Algier kind of took it, right? He helped you probably win leagues or win some games. And now you can kind of get him for either a higher second that you probably drafted him in or a higher pick that you drafted him. Yeah, cash in. Why not do that? So keep your second round picks. There's so much value even in this second round. I mean, I think of Parker Washington, Xavier Hutchinson. Sometimes Zay Flowers falls into the second. Sometimes Josh Down falls into the second.
All those running backs.
Exactly.
Charbonnet, Evans,
everyone.
Tucker,
And you're just trying to sell them away because I don't think they'll get the draft capital, or I don't think they'll do this, and they're second round picks. I only want first round picks. Nah, man, second rounds can definitely bring you the value as well. Yeah. So keep those second round picks and don't trade them away for nothing.
And that's something that we highlighted about this class in a video recently this week. I don't know if it's out yet or not, but we talked about the 23 and the 22 class and drafting them together. Mm-hmm. And I think the good thing about the 23 class, it might not have the amount of superstars that last year's had, specifically in the wide receiver room, but it has a ton of depth, a ton of players who could be really important to NFL teams. That second round in 2023 is way better than even what we saw in 2022. There is so much depth and star potential there. And I'm telling you what, the 24 class is even better. I mean, right now, anything can change.
Exactly.
So.
Every single year. Oh, next year's better. Next year's better.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I probably shouldn't say that. Because honestly, I am someone who's like, keep your picks and pick. Pick a player. Just stop. Like, this time last year, people were saying the 22 class was bad. Just stop. Yeah. Pick a player and move on. That you like. Okay, my last do not. This is something I say don't do. And actually, I think when we talk about relationships, you talked about relationships earlier. I think this is one of the most important things in keeping a healthy dynasty league. Do not react poorly to trade offers or questions in general. Or just being like aggravating and aggressive to people in leagues anyway, right? Relationships are the most important thing to a healthy and active dynasty league. Now, this goes two ways. So I'll explain the second way here in a second, but there's nothing more off-putting than sending a trade offer and getting a reply that's just rude and brash and harsh to the trade offer that you sent. Keep in mind that most people who play dynasty and fantasy football in general, this is just a break from the normalities of your world, from the everyday, from the 9 to 5, from the grind, from things that you don't really love about life. This is your break from it to kind of just relax and have fun and entertain yourself. So when people take the time out of their day to send you an offer, just be kind with your response. It's okay. You can say, wait, what if it's an awful offer? Just wait 1 second, okay? Like, think about this. Long term, is it really worth ruining a relationship just because you didn't like the trade offer that was sent, right? That could be something that could set you back later on, because what if you now want a player on that owner's team, but you were a dickhead to them, right? Like, let's not hide behind it. Like, you were a douche to them, right? Like they don't want to talk to you. I mean, the opposite side of that coin, like I said, it's two sides to that coin. The opposite side is send offers that are at minimum good, fair value. Now, we don't really rely on trade calculators, but at minimum, send an offer, use a trade calculator that you like, and at least like have it be realistic. Have it be like somewhat decent in value. Now, we don't really like trade calculators. We don't use them. Some people use them as their Bible. But just for those people who maybe aren't as advanced in trading, just use a trade calculator. Make sure, hey, this seems pretty fair in people's eyes. So let me send this and see what happens. So anyway, if someone sends you an offer you don't like, there's a couple ways you can respond to it. You can be a dick, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And that might make you feel good. Like, yeah, look at the stupid offer I got, right?
Look at this.
Or you can
Look at
just be
this.
kind and say a couple things like this, like, hey, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want the player that you're sending me.
Right.
I don't really like the value that I'm getting in return.
Right.
Or you can say, hey, appreciate the offer. I'm going to send you a counter right now with something I would actually do if you are interested in the type of offer that they have sent. So again, I just don't think you're getting anywhere by being rude. I mean, if that's how you operate, that's how you operate. And again, I'm not saying like don't not be yourself. Be yourself, but you can be like a nice person. Oftentimes in leagues like this and Twitter and like whatever, it's kind of all encapsulating. Just because you don't see the person face to face, you feel like you can just say whatever you want. Like, it's okay to be like, hey, I'll be honest and I'm being genuine here. I don't think it's good value, but I appreciate the offer. That comes off way better than like, what the hell were you thinking when you sent this? Right? It's like, okay, all right. I mean, fair enough. And again, the opposite side of the coin is be realistic with your trade offers. But if it's a realistic trade offer and the value is there, like, it's okay. Just say, I'm not interested, but thank you for sending it. Or, maybe we can counter and do this. Or, hey, I appreciate the offer, but I'm just not interested in this kind of deal, but I appreciate it. Let's look at something in the future.
Yeah.
That's going to keep your relationships in a good place, your league in a good place. And just don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. My second do not and the last do not of the video is don't get lost in the rookie hype. Okay, fantasy football is all about balance.
Yeah.
Don't be one of these fantasy owners that kind of trades away these rookies and like trades away all their proven assets for these rookies, right? Because I think sometimes when you do that, sometimes these guys don't perform as good as you expect them to be. And I'm a victim of having six first round picks and then having these rookie picks and then my team still being shit for the next couple of years, which is fine. Maybe that's the thought process that you kind of wanted to do. But I think the best example that I can bring for you that the rookies were so hyped that people got lost in was Sky Moore last year, right, in 2022. When Sky Moore came in, everyone said, wow, he had amazing draft capital, one of the best landing spots. He has a great quarterback. But he had a shit year. Like, he was wide receiver 4, 5, 6 on this team. Like, he barely saw the field. He was getting kick returns and punt returns, which good. I mean, maybe that's how he has to grow. Maybe that's what's going to happen for Sky Moore. But I think a lot of people at that time already saw these older assets maybe that on their team that they saw and wanted to immediately flip. And when I say older, I'm not talking about, the 30-year-olds. I'm talking about the guys that's been in the league for a year or two, maybe even 3 years, maybe at the end of their rookie contract, kind of like the Terrys, kind of like the DKs, right? Kind of like the Michael Pittman saying, oh, I like Sky Moore's situation a little bit better, right? Because Michael Pittman had, who the hell Michael Pittman had? Matt Ryan, right? Like, oh, Matt Ryan was good at the time, but Michael Pittman finished significantly better. He played with 3 other quarterbacks, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, no one expected him to finish as the top guy again with Jared Goff. Amari Cooper, who I was off, saying, oh, Deshaun Watson's coming back. He's going to be playing with Jacoby Brissett. But I think Sky Moore is going to have a better upside because of his landing and draft capital, right? Same thing with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I mean, I was off on both of these guys. Ain't nobody expect Geno to come in and be slinging it like that. I mean, I bet you there's some trades out there that people traded away, maybe Lockett because he's older, for someone like a Sky Moore. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. So when you get so focused on this rookie hype, and that's in every level of the process, whether it's Senior Bowl, whether it's the draft and after the draft, or all the hype in the media, sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's not going to be that same. So that's why I say there's balance in the game. Don't always go in for the rookies and have a rookie team. You need a guy with a little bit of experience. You need a guy with proven work and production in the NFL in a fantasy perspective, because that's exactly how you start to lose your way when you get all these rookies that have a team, which I'm a victim of. You can have all first round picks, have all these rookies. Ain't nothing going to happen. I traded away, if I'm not mistaken, Devonta Smith, and I got a couple first round picks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Don't do that. Don't get lost in the hype in these rookies, because someone like a Devonta Smith that no one really liked probably traded him away for a late first round and got Sky Moore. I mean, obviously that situation is a little bit different, but I would say don't get too hype on the rookie hype.
Yeah. And I think for me, it comes back to so Sky's an interesting one because we talked about this before. I liked Sky Moore as a prospect.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Chiefs, and I didn't buy into the hype of him being like ahead of some of these blue chip wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit interesting. But for me, it's like, do you believe in the talent? Is a landing spot fun? Okay. That's not all that matters. What do you think about the talent?
Yeah.
So Sky kind of, bamboozled a lot of people, but I still don't think he should have gone ahead of those blue chip players. And I agree with like the hype. Like, be careful of the hype. The reality is, and I don't want to speak for everyone on Twitter, but a lot of people on Twitter, they might care a little bit more about how many likes and retweets they get than giving you good advice. I'm just going to be honest with you. So be careful when we're around the Senior Bowl, around the Combine, even like mini rookie camps, as after the draft. Like, be careful because people have other intentions than just giving you good advice on Twitter. For sure. I mean, think about it last year. Players who got hype at the Senior Bowl. Abram Smith out of Baylor, right? He was rising in a lot of people's rankings. How about Velus Jones? He had a good camp. How about Jalen Tolbert, Calvin Austin? No disrespect to Calvin Austin, but I mean, he got injured this year. As someone on Twitter, was upset at that I included him in that list. But the point is, just trust your evaluation that you spent looking at this player's entire year worth of film and his entire body, as well as the analytics of that year, over these events that are fun, but they shouldn't drastically change your ranking. So I agree. Like, be even cool, just let your film, let your evaluation and your analytics speak higher than the Combine or, the
tweets on
Bowl.
Twitter.
The Combine is far more important than the Senior Bowl. But anyway, just get, like Badake said, careful with the hype, careful with Twitter. Honestly, I think a lot of people would be better Dynasty players if they were off Twitter. That's just my opinion, but we know it's important to the community, so we're trying to be a positive influence there. Anyway, that's a different story. Those are our do's and don'ts for Dynasty football. Comment down below. Again, what's some do's and don'ts for you? And we will see you guys in a future video here very soon. All love.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.